The sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Route 17, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the dusty shoulder where little Lily stood. For weeks, she'd been there every afternoon, a tiny figure in a faded sundress, waving enthusiastically at the thunderous parades of motorcycles that roared by. Her small hands clutched a cardboard sign scrawled with chalk. "Cupcakes for sale. Help Mom's dream." The air was thick with the scent of vanilla and sugar from the tray balanced precariously on an old crate. But the bikers, leather-clad wanderers chasing the horizon, rarely stopped. They honked horns in passing salute, some tossing coins that glinted in the fading light, but Lily's wide eyes always followed them until the dust settled, her hope undimmed. That day, though, the rumble grew different, closer, until it shook the ground beneath her sneakers. If this tale of quiet courage is pulling you in already, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us what honor looks like on the open road. Let's keep the ride going together. But today, the world turned cruel without warning. A battered pickup truck screeched to a halt nearby, kicking up gravel that stung Lily's bare legs. Out stepped a burly man with a stained shirt and a scowl that twisted like barbed wire. Her uncle, the one who'd promised to watch over her after her parents' accident, but had only brought empty bottles and hollow threats. "Enough of this nonsense," he growled, his voice gravelly from too many smokes. He snatched the tray of cupcakes, the precious batch Lily had baked before dawn in their cramped trailer, dreaming of saving enough for her mum's hospital bills. The treats tumbled to the dirt, frosting smearing into the earth like forgotten wishes. Lily's lip trembled, but she didn't cry, not yet. "Please, Uncle Ray, it's for Mama. She needs the medicine." He laughed, a bitter bark, and raised his hand as if to strike, the shadow falling over her small frame like a storm cloud. That's when the horizon cracked open. Not with thunder, but with the low growl of engines multiplying, a symphony of Harleys and Indians converging from the east like a steel river. 40 strong they were, angels in black leather, vests patched with the emblem of the Iron Oath Riders, a club forged in the fires of old wars and unbreakable vows. At their head rode Ethan Hale, a man whose face bore the lines of battles long past, a jagged scar across his jaw from a roadside ambush in some forgotten desert skirmish, eyes shadowed by the loss of a brother-in-arms who'd made him swear an oath on a bloodied patch of sand. Ethan hadn't planned to stop. He was leading his crew back from a charity run, the wind whipping through his greying beard, the taste of freedom sharp on his tongue. But Lily's wave caught his eye in the side mirror, a desperate flutter against the chaos, and something stirred, an echo of a promise he'd buried deep. The convoy slowed, tires humming against the heat-shimmering road, engines idling to a purr that vibrated through the bones. Ethan killed his motor first, boots hitting the ground with a thud that echoed his resolve. The others followed, a wall of chrome and determination forming behind him, their faces weathered but kind, tattoos telling stories of redemption rather than rage. Lily froze, her uncle's hand still raised, as Ethan strode forward, his presence filling the space like a gathering dusk. "Easy there," Ethan said, voice steady as an anchor, locking eyes with the man. No shout, no threat, just the weight of a life lived by codes unspoken. Uncle Ray faltered, glancing at the sea of bikers, their machines gleaming under the sun like guardians from another world. "You her kin?" Ethan asked, nodding toward Lily, who clutched the hem of her dress, eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. Ray muttered something about family business, but Ethan's gaze didn't waver. He knelt to Lily's level, the leather of his gloves creaking softly, and picked up a fallen cupcake, brushing off the dirt with gentle care. "These looked like they were made with heart," he said, offering it back. "What's the dream, kid?" Lily's voice was a whisper at first, then spilled out, the weeks of waving, the pennies saved, the ache for her mom lying pale in a bed miles away, fighting shadows no medicine could fully chase. Ethan's jaw tightened. He knew that ache, the one that clawed at night after losing his own family to a twist of fate on these very roads. Years ago, he'd vowed to his fallen brother, "Protect the innocent, honor the small promises that hold the world together." He'd drifted since, leading his crew through runs for vets and kids in need, but this felt like the call pulling him back. Ray shifted, blustering about debts and tough times, but the bikers dismounted now, forming a quiet circle, their silence more potent than any roar. One, a burly veteran named Marcus, with a prosthetic arm from an old IED, handed Lily a crisp bill from his wallet. Another, Sarah, the club's medic, her hair tied back under a bandana, knelt beside her, checking for bruises with a mother's touch. "We've seen your sign before," Ethan said to Ray, standing tall again. "Passed by a dozen times, but today, we're stopping, and we're buying every last one." The words hung in the air, a vow sealed in the dust. Ray backed toward his truck, mumbling retreat, the fight draining from him like air from a punctured tire. As he peeled away, tires spinning futile gravel, Lily's tears finally came, not from fear, but from the warmth of hands that lingered, offering more than money. Ethan watched the truck vanish, then turned to his crew. "Brothers, sisters, this girl's got fire. Her mum's fighting, and we've got backs to watch." Nods rippled through the group, engines revving in agreement, a chorus that promised not just cupcakes, but a chain of loyalty that could span horizons. Lily handed out the treats, her small hands steady now, the scent of chocolate mingling with the leather and oil of her new guardians. Ethan took the last one, biting into its sweetness, the flavor unlocking memories of simpler oaths. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in strokes of orange and gold, he knew this intersection wasn't chance. It was the spark of something larger, a forgotten promise stirring to life, binding a lone girl to a family of riders who'd ride through hell for honor's sake. The convoy reformed, but slower now. Lily perched safely on Sarah's bike, her laughter cutting through the rumble like a clear bell. Ethan led them west, toward the hospital lights on the edge of town, the road ahead winding with unseen trials. In the rear view, the empty crate faded, but the bond it forged gleamed eternal. For in the world of roaring pipes and whispered vows, one wave could summon angels and change the path of souls forever. The engines thrummed like a heartbeat as the convoy carved through the twilight, a serpent of chrome and resolve, winding toward the neon glow of Mercy General Hospital. Lily clung to Sarah's waist, her small arms wrapped tight, the wind tousling her hair like whispers of freedom. The scent of exhaust mingled with the faint vanilla still on her hands, a reminder of the stand she'd held alone for so long. Ethan rode point, his broad shoulders cutting the air, eyes fixed on the road ahead, but mind replaying the flicker of that sign. Cupcakes for sale. Help Mom's dream. It had haunted him on past rides, a child's plea swallowed by the miles, but today it had hooked into the scar on his soul, the one from the night he'd lost everything to a drunk driver's swerve. Sarah glanced back at Lily through her rearview mirror, her voice carrying over the roar. "You holding on, little one? This wind's got bite tonight." Lily nodded, her cheek pressed against the leather jacket, the warmth of Sarah's back chasing away the chill of her uncle's shadow. Sarah was no stranger to shadows. She'd patched up enough broken lives in her days as a nurse before joining the Iron Oath, trading scrubs for a vest that bore the club's insignia, an iron chain linking clasped hands. Her own promise pulled her here, to her late husband's squad. She'd sworn to keep the light burning for those left in the dark. Lily's story echoed that vow, a fragile thread in a world that frayed too easily. As they crested the hill overlooking the town, the hospital's lights pierced the dusk like distant stars, steady against the encroaching night. Ethan signaled a slow down, the convoy peeling into the lot with the precision of a well-oiled machine. tires crunching over scattered leaves. Heads turned from windows and doorways, nurses pausing mid-stride, visitors peering out with wary curiosity. 40 riders dismounted in unison, a sea of boots on pavement, their presence both imposing and oddly reverent, like guardians descending on a sanctuary. Lily slid off Sarah's bike, her sneakers hitting the ground with a soft pat, eyes wide at the building's facade, where her world had shrunk to beeps and hushed voices for months. Ethan led the way inside, Lily's hand in his calloused one, the group fanning out behind like a protective wing. The lobby smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, casting harsh edges on the faces of those waiting. At the reception desk, a tired clerk looked up, her glasses slipping down her nose. "Visiting hours are almost over," she began, but Ethan's voice cut through gently, steady as the road. "We're family. For room 214, Clara Thompson." The name hung there, pulled from Lily's earlier words, and the clerk's expression softened at the girl's nod. No questions about the leather or the numbers. Something in their quiet purpose spoke louder than any badge. Up the elevator they went, the hum enclosing them in a momentary hush, reflections in the metal doors showing a tapestry of lives intertwined by chance and choice. Lily squeezed Ethan's hand tighter as the doors opened to the ward, the air thicker with the weight of unspoken fears. Nurses bustled past, charts in hand. But one, a young woman with kind eyes, recognized Lily and waved them on. Room 214's door stood ajar, spilling a sliver of warm light. Inside, Clara lay propped against pillows, her face pale as moonlight, tubes tracing lines like fragile rivers across her arm. Machines whispered rhythms, a quiet vigil over her shallow breaths. Lily broke free, rushing to the bedside, her voice a burst of sunshine. "Mama, I brought help. Real help." Clara's eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to a weak smile as she saw her daughter, then the figures filling the doorway. Ethan hung back, letting the reunion unfold, but his crew filtered in respectfully, Marcus setting a bouquet of wildflowers from the roadside on the sill, another rider, a quiet giant named Jacob, pulling up chairs with hands that could crush stone, but moved like they cradled glass. Sarah approached the bed, her medic's instincts kicking in as she scanned the monitors. "Clara, I'm Sarah. Lily's told us about you. The fight you're putting up. We've got your back now." Clara's gaze shifted to Ethan, who stepped forward, removing his helmet with a nod. "Name's Ethan Hale. Your girl's got spirit. Sold her heart in those cupcakes today. We're the Iron Oath Riders, and we've got a promise to keep." The words settled like dust after a storm, Clara's hand reaching for Lily's. She'd been a single mum scraping by, dreams of opening a little bakery dashed by illness that came like a thief, leaving debts that Uncle Ray had twisted into chains. "I just wanted—" "For her," Clara murmured, voice frayed but fierce. Ethan knelt by the bed, his scar catching the lamplight, a map of his own losses. "I know about wanting. Lost my brother on these roads years back. Swore I'd watch for the ones who need it most. Lily waved us down today, called us in. We're buying more than cupcakes, whatever it takes, bills, rides, whatever. You're not alone." Outside the room, the hallway hummed with subdued energy as the riders coordinated in low tones. Phones came out, calls to club contacts for medical funds they'd built from runs and donations, voices weaving a net of support. But not all was smooth. A security guard approached, badge glinting, his posture stiff. "Sir, this is a restricted area. You'll need to—" Ethan met his eyes calm as a still lake. "We're not here to cause trouble, just family seeing to family." The guard hesitated, glancing at Lily's beaming face, the way Clara's color seemed to brighten. He backed off with a grunt, the moment passing like a shadow. As night deepened, the convoy lingered in the waiting area, sharing stories over vending machine coffee, tales of rides that saved lives, oaths that bound them tighter than blood. Lily sat with her mom, chattering about the angels on bikes, while Ethan stepped out to the balcony, the cool air carrying the distant call of crickets. He lit a cigarette, the flame flickering against his weathered face, and thought of the promise he'd made under desert stars: honor the small flames that keep the dark at bay. This was no grand war, but it felt like one. A quiet battle for a mother's dream, a daughter's hope. Ray's truck had sped away, but Ethan knew shadows like that didn't vanish easy. Word would spread. Old debts might circle back. Sarah joined him, leaning on the rail. "She's a fighter, that Clara. Reminds me of my own road." Ethan nodded, exhaling smoke into the stars. "Yeah. And Lily. She's the spark. We'll ride this out." Below, the parking lot gleamed with their machines, silent sentinels under the moon. The hospital's lights pulsed on, a beacon in the night, and for the first time in weeks, Lily's world felt vast again, not confined to a trailer or a tray, but stretching to horizons guarded by 40 souls who'd answered a wave. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel, and at what moments they reach you. Dawn broke over Mercy General like a reluctant promise, painting the sky in hues of rose and steel grey, the first light filtering through the blinds of room 214. Clara stirred under the crisp sheets, her breathing steadier than it had been in weeks, the monitors beeping a softer rhythm now. Lily had curled up beside her during the night, one small hand resting on her mother's arm, the exhaustion of the day etching faint lines on her young face. Outside, the Iron Oath riders had claimed the parking lot as their vigil, engines cold but spirits unyielding, a few taking shifts to watch the entrances, while others caught rest on benches or in their saddlebags. Ethan stood by the window, nursing a styrofoam cup of bitter coffee from the lobby machine, the steam rising like ghosts in the morning chill. His mind churned with the night's revelations, Clara's quiet confessions between doses of pain relief, tales of a life upended by accident and illness, her bakery dream reduced to scribbles in a notebook hidden under the bed. Ray's name had surfaced more than once, not as kin, but as a leech, siphoning what little they had under the guise of help. Ethan's scar itched under the fluorescent hum, a reminder of his own tangled past, the brother lost to a crash that reeked of foul play, the oath sworn in a haze of grief to shield the vulnerable from such wolves. This felt like an echo, a chance to mend what time had frayed. Sarah entered softly, her boots muffled on the linoleum, carrying a tray of hospital breakfast that looked as appetizing as cardboard. "Clara's vitals are holding," she murmured to Ethan, setting the tray down. "The doc's coming by soon. Said the club's donation might cover the next round of treatments, but we need to talk logistics. Ray's not the type to slink away forever." Ethan nodded, his gaze drifting to Lily, who blinked awake with a yawn, rubbing her eyes. The girl's resilience stirred something paternal in him, a warmth he'd long armored against. "We'll handle it. First, let's get her mum some real fuel." He pulled a thermos from his vest, homemade stew from the club's cook, rich with the scent of herbs and slow-simmered meat, a staple from their roadside gatherings. As Clara woke fully, the room filled with the aroma, chasing away the sterile tang. Lily helped her sit up, chattering about the riders' stories from the waiting area, tales of cross-country runs for fallen vets, patches earned in moments of quiet heroism. Clara's eyes, though weary, sparkled with gratitude as she accepted a spoonful from Sarah. "You all? You're like something out of a dream," she said, voice gaining strength. "I thought we were done for. Ray's been circling, saying the trailer's his if we can't pay up." Ethan's jaw set, but he kept his tone even. "Trailers and debts don't own souls. We've got lawyers in the club. Old military jag types. We'll sort the papers, make it ironclad." The doctor's rounds interrupted. A middle-aged man with a clipboard and a furrowed brow, his white coat crisp against the rumpled world of the ward. Harlan Ellis glanced at the assembled group, riders spilling into the hallway, their vests a patchwork of symbols, and cleared his throat. "Mrs. Thompson, your labs show improvement, but the insurance snag." He trailed off as Ethan stepped forward, extending a hand. Ethan Hale, we're covering it. Full ride, treatments, meds, whatever she needs. The doctor hesitated, flipping through notes. The weight of bureaucracy evident in his sigh. "That's generous, but protocol requires verification. We've had issues with irregular donations before." Sarah, ever the bridge, pulled out her phone, showing transfer confirmations from the Iron Oath's charity arm, built on years of legit runs and tax filings. "We're clean, Doc. Check us out. This isn't charity, it's family." Harlan nodded slowly, the tension easing as he examined Clara, prescribing a new regimen that promised real traction against the illness. Lily beamed, hugging her mum's waist, the moment of fragile victory in the war of wills. But as the doctor left, a shadow loomed in the doorway. Not Ray, but a hospital administrator, a wiry woman in a tailored suit, her heels clicking like accusations. "Mr. Hale? A word, please." She led him to a side office, the air cooler, files stacked like barriers on her desk. "Your group's presence is notable. We've received a call. Family member concerned about the child's welfare. Claims you're interfering." Ethan's blood ran cool, piecing it together. Ray, striking from afar, twisting protection into peril. Back in the room, he relayed it quietly. The riders gathering like storm clouds. Marcus, the veteran with the prosthetic, clenched his fist, the gears whirring softly. "That snake's playing dirty. We ride clean, but we don't bend." Ethan paced, the leather of his boots scuffing the floor, weighing the oath against the law's cold edge. "No rushing in. We document, we witness. Lily stays with her mom. Sarah, you're on point here." And the plan formed in murmurs, a few riders scouting Ray's haunts, others liaising with social services through club connections, fair-minded folks who'd seen enough corruption to value honor over red tape. By midday, the convoy split, half staying to fortify the hospital watch, the rest rolling out under the climbing sun, dust trailing like a banner. Ethan mounted his bike last, Lily waving from the window, her small figure framed by Clara's arm around her shoulders. The engine's roar answered her, a vow carried on the wind. As they hit the open road, Ethan felt the pull of old ghosts. His brother's laugh in the throttle, the desert sand in his veins. Ray's truck had been spotted at a dive bar on the outskirts, nursing grudges with cheap whiskey. The ride there was tense, horizons blurring into resolve, the scent of pine and tar sharpening their senses. They arrived as the sun peaked, parking in a loose arc outside the weathered joint, neon signs flickering even in daylight. Inside, the air hung heavy with smoke and regret, jukebox crooning forgotten ballads. Ray hunched at the bar, eyes bloodshot, spotting the influx with a start. Ethan approached alone first, the door's bell jingling like a warning. "We need to talk, Ray, about family, real family." The man sneered, but his hands trembled on his glass. "This ain't your road, biker." Ethan's voice dropped low, steady as bedrock. "It is now. Clara's fighting, Lily's dreaming. You walk away clean, or we make sure the truth sees light, every debt, every threat." The bar fell quiet. Patrons sensing the undercurrent, the riders' shadows lengthening across the floorboards. Ray blustered, invoking blood ties, but Ethan's eyes held the weight of 40 oaths, unbreakable as the chain on his vest. A tense negotiation unfolded, papers to sign over the trailer, a promise to vanish from their lives, backed by witnesses who'd testify to his shadows. No fists flew. Justice here was in the mirror of consequence, Ray's empire crumbling under the glare of integrity. As they rode back, the sun dipping toward afternoon gold, Ethan radioed ahead. The administrator had cleared the air, swayed by the rider's credentials and Clara's improving chart. Lily's laugh echoed over the line, a sound purer than chrome. But Ethan knew this was just a bend in the road. Deeper debts lurked, ties to shadier figures who'd funded Ray's grip. The Iron Oath would ride on, guardians against the gathering dusk, their promise to a cupcake stand weaving into legend, one wave, 40 angels, and a legacy of light piercing the ordinary dark. The afternoon sun beat down on the convoy like a relentless forge, hammering the blacktop into a shimmering haze as Ethan and his riders carved back toward Mercy General. The air hummed with the low growl of engines, a steady pulse that matched the resolve in Ethan's chest. Dust devils danced along the roadside ditches, kicking up the scent of dry earth and wild sage, while the wind tugged at the edges of their vests, carrying whispers of pine from the distant hills. Marcus rode flank, his prosthetic arm glinting like polished steel, the whir of its mechanisms a faint counterpoint to the thunder of tires. Jacob brought up the rear, his massive frame hunched over the handlebars, eyes scanning the mirrors for any tail that might slink from Ray's retreat. The bar standoff had ended without blood, Ray's signature on a hastily drawn deed transferring the trailer, his bluster folding under the weight of witnesses and the unspoken threat of the club's reach. But Ethan knew a cornered man like that didn't fade quietly. Shadows had a way of lengthening when the light turned away. Back at the hospital, the parking lot had transformed into a makeshift camp under the climbing sun. Bikes lined like silent warriors, saddlebags open to reveal coolers of water and sandwiches wrapped in foil, the aroma of fresh bread cutting through the antiseptic drift from the building. Sarah stood at the entrance, coordinating with a couple of riders who'd stayed behind, her bandana tied back against the heat. Phone pressed to her ear as she spoke to a club contact, a retired judge with a soft spot for lost causes. Lily peered out from the lobby window, her face lighting up as the engines approached, waving with both hands as if summoning them home. Clara, wheeled to a bench by a nurse, watched too, her color better, a knitted blanket draped over her lap, like a shield against the uncertainties still lurking. Ethan dismounted first, boots crunching gravel, and strode to Lily, ruffling her hair with a gloved hand. "All clear on the road, kid. Your uncle's signing off. Trailer's yours, and your mom's free and clear." Lily's eyes widened, then she threw her arms around his waist, the hug fierce and fleeting, like a spark in dry tinder. Clara reached out from her chair, her fingers trembling slightly as they clasped Ethan's. "I don't know how to thank you, all of you." He shook his head, the scar on his jaw pulling tight in the light. "No thanks needed. Oaths like ours aren't for show." But inside, the words stirred the old vow. The one etched in desert dust after his brother's wreck, a promise to stand where blood failed, to forge family from the fragments life scattered. The group gathered in the shade of an awning, voices low as they debriefed, the sun casting dappled patterns through the leaves overhead. Marcus recounted the bar scene, his voice gravelly with amusement, Ray's face paling like milk left in the heat. The way he'd muttered about owing favors before slinking out the back. But Sarah's call had brought sharper news. The judge confirming Ray's ties to a loose network of lenders on the fringes, men who peddled high-interest loans wrapped in threats, their grip tightening on folks like Clara who'd slipped through cracks. "He's not alone," Sarah said, folding her arms, the leather of her vest creaking. "Word is, they've been leaning on her for months, twisting the hospital debt into something uglier. We cut one thread, but the web's still spinning." Ethan's gaze hardened, drifting to the horizon where thunderheads gathered, dark and brooding against the blue. He knew webs like that, had unraveled them before, in runs that took the club from dusty towns to forgotten backroads, pulling families from the brink. "We don't charge in blind. Jacob, you and a few head to the club's safe house, pull records on these lenders. Quiet, legal, Get the DA's ear if we can. Nods rippled through the riders, a silent pact sealing in the heat. Lily tugged at Ethan's sleeve, her voice small but steady. Will they come here? To Mama? He knelt, meeting her eyes, the scent of vanilla faint on her from the morning's remnants. Not on our watch. You're under iron oath now, 40 strong and growing. As the afternoon wore on, the hospital stirred with routine, nurses wheeling carts down halls that echoed with footsteps and distant beeps, the air thick with the tang of lunch trays and cleaning solution. Dr. Harlan returned for a check, his clipboard a shield, as he reviewed Clara's chart, the lines of improvement tracing like hope across the page. The treatments are taking hold, he said, adjusting her IV with careful hands, but the full course. It's costly. Ethan, leaning in the doorway, exchanged a glance with Sarah. Covered. We've got a fund, legit, audited. Pour it in. The doctor paused, then nodded, the barrier of protocol cracking under the evidence of their commitment. Lily hovered nearby, offering her mom a sip from a plastic cup, the simple act weaving normalcy into the chaos, but peace fractured like glass under pressure. As evening shadows stretched across the lot, a sleek black sedan pulled in, tires hissing to a stop near the bikes. Out stepped two men in crisp shirts and ties that screamed hired muscle, broad-shouldered, with the flat stares of enforcers who'd traded scruples for paychecks. They scanned the scene, eyes narrowing at the riders lounging like sentinels, then headed straight for the entrance. Ethan intercepted them at the doors, his stance unyielding, the sun at his back casting him in silhouette, looking for someone. The lead man, with a jaw like chiseled stone, smirked faintly. Thompson matter. Private. But Ethan's voice cut through, calm and edged with iron. She's got family here. Speak plain or walk. Tension coiled like a spring, the air electric with unspoken threats, the distant rumble of an approaching storm mirroring the standoff. The men exchanged glances, then the second one pulled a folder from his jacket, papers stamped with generic seals, demanding signatures on escalated debts, veiled warnings about consequences if ignored. Sarah joined, her medic's poise masking the fire in her eyes, flipping through the documents with a scoff. This is predation, not law. We've got eyes on Ray, his plaything. Back off or it unravels for all. The enforcers hesitated, the weight of the club's numbers pressing in, Marcus and Jacob materializing like shadows, their presence a quiet storm. Words turned to warnings. No blows exchanged, but the message landed. The Iron Oath wasn't a fleeting rescue, but a fortress. The men retreated to their car, engine purring to life as they peeled away, taillights fading into the dusk. Clara, watching from her room, exhaled a breath she'd held, Lily climbing onto the bed to nestle close. Ethan stepped out to the balcony again, the cooling air carrying the first drops of rain, pattering on the rail like hesitant applause. His phone buzzed, a text from the safe house team, leads on the lenders. Ties to a corrupt fixer in the county offices, the kind who bent rules for the right price. The web deepened, but so did the resolve, threads of loyalty binding tighter. Night fell heavy, the storm breaking in sheets that drummed on the hospital roof, lightning etching the sky in jagged vows. Inside, the riders rotated watches, stories shared in the waiting room, tales of past rides that toppled tyrants, oaths renewed over lukewarm coffee. Ethan sat with Clara for a spell, her voice soft as she spoke of the bakery dream. Shelves of cupcakes rising like sunrises, Lily's laughter filling the air. We'll make it real, he promised, the words echoing his brother's ghost. As thunder rolled, Lily slept soundly, guarded by angels in leather, the road ahead twisting, but lit by the unyielding spark of one girl's wave. If this story of unbreakable bonds is touching your heart, hit that like button now and subscribe for more tales of road warriors and redemption. The rain lashed against the hospital windows like a barrage of unanswered questions. sheets of water blurring the neon signs into ghostly halos as night deepened its hold. Inside room 214, the storm's rhythm synced with the steady beep of Clara's monitor, a fragile counterpoint to the chaos outside. Lily had drifted into sleep again, her head pillowed on her mother's lap, small breaths rising and falling like the gentle swell of waves. Clara stroked her daughter's hair, the motion automatic, her eyes fixed on the door where shadows of riders passed in quiet patrol. The scent of rain-soaked earth seeped through the cracks, mingling with the faint herbal trace of the stew Ethan had brought earlier. A reminder that sustenance came not just from tubes and trays, but from hands extended in the dark. Ethan lingered in the hallway, his back against the cool wall, the weight of his vest a familiar anchor amid the tension. The text from the safe house burned in his pocket, leads on the lenders tracing back to a county fixer named Harlan Voss, a man whose name evoked the doctors but twisted into something far uglier. A bureaucrat who'd greased palms for years, turning public aid into private profit. Voss's web ensnared folks like Clara, inflating debts with fees that compounded like interest on a bad bet, all while wearing the mask of officialdom. Ethan's scar throbbed in the humid air, a phantom echo of the night his brother had gone down, the crash report buried under similar corruption. A routine investigation that closed too quick, leaving oaths unspoken. This wasn't coincidence. It was the road's cruel symmetry. Pulling him into the fray once more, Sarah approached from the waiting area, her steps soft on the wet linoleum, dripping an umbrella she'd braved for a smoke break. "Jacob's team dug deep," she said, voice low, handing him a printed sheet from the club's encrypted line, names, dates, blurred photos of backroom deals in dimly lit offices. Voss is the hub, Ray's just a spoke, feeding him scraps from families like this one. They've got a hearing tomorrow on Clara's estate, trailer, savings, all of it if we don't counter. Ethan's jaw tightened, folding the paper into his pocket, the crinkle sharp against the storm's roar. "Then we ride at first light. No guns, no games, just truth on the table. Get Marcus on the phone. He'll know a DA who owes us from that vet run last year." Sarah nodded, her eyes reflecting the hallway's dim glow, the bond between them forged in shared vigils like this, where loyalty outlasted the rain. Dawn crept in, reluctant, the storm's fury spent into a misty drizzle that cloaked the parking lot in silver veils. The convoy stirred early, engines coughing to life with muffled rumbles, headlights cutting fog like beacons of intent. Ethan checked on Clara first, finding her awake, sipping tea from a styrofoam cup, Lily still nestled close. "We're heading to the county seat," he told her, voice steady as the horizon. "Voss's game ends today. You rest. Sarah's staying with you both." Clara's hand found his, frail but firm, the gratitude in her eyes a mirror to the bakery sketches she'd shown him. Visions of frosted dreams rising from ovens, shelves lined with hope. "Be careful, Ethan. Men like that. They fight dirty." He squeezed back, the leather of his glove creaking softly. "We've got dirt on our side, too, the kind that sticks." The ride out was a procession through sodden fields, tires hissing on slick roads, the air crisp with petrichor and the metallic tang of wet chrome. 40 riders strong, they formed a rolling phalanx, vests patched with the Iron Oath emblem catching the weak sun as it broke through clouds. Ethan led, wind whipping his beard, mind mapping the plan, arrive at the courthouse unannounced, present evidence to the clerk before Voss could spin his narrative. Marcus rode beside him, prosthetic arm steady on the throttle, his voice crackling over the intercom. "DA's on board, says Voss's been dodging audits. This could unravel half the county's underbelly." But doubt flickered. Ethan knew the fixers' type, the ones who whispered to judges in smoke-filled rooms, turning justice into a commodity. The courthouse loomed on the town's edge, a squat brick building with flags drooping in the damp, steps worn smooth by years of footsteps seeking redress. They parked in a wide arc, engines dying to a collective sigh, the group dismounting with purposeful quiet, boots on pavement, no revs or shouts, just the weight of presence. Inside, the lobby buzzed with early petitioners, the air stale with old paper and coffee grounds. Ethan spotted Ray first, lurking by a pillar, his stained shirt rumpled, eyes darting like a cornered fox. Flanking him were the enforcers from the night before, suits crisp but faces taut. Voss himself at the center, a slick man in his 50s, silver hair combed back, tie-pin glinting like a false star. He turned as the doors swung open, the influx of leather and resolve drawing stares, his smile faltering into a mask. "Mr. Hale," Voss said smoothly, stepping forward as if greeting old friends, his voice oily over the marble echoes. "Heard about your little charity show, but this is legal ground. Debts don't vanish on goodwill." Ethan met his gaze, unflinching, pulling the folder from his vest. "Legal? We've got records, forged liens, threats logged by witnesses, raised testimonies next if you push." The fixer laughed, low and dismissive, but sweat beaded on his brow, the hallway's fluorescent hum amplifying the standoff. Riders fanned out, not crowding but witnessing, Jacob's bulk by the clerk's window, Sarah's absence felt but her earlier calls echoing in the DA's promise. Ray shifted, mumbling denials, but Marcus's glare pinned him, the veteran's prosthetic whirring like a ticking clock. The clerk called the case, a drab hearing room with wooden benches scarred by time, the air thick with tension as Voss laid out his claims. Debts ballooned to impossible sums, the trailer forfeit, but Ethan rose when prompted, voice clear and unyielding, laying out the evidence. Bank traces, witness statements from neighbors who'd heard Ray's threats, club logs of Clara's plight. The judge, a weathered woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward, flipping pages, the room holding its breath. Voss countered with legalese, invoking statutes twisted like vines, but the DA's liaison arrived mid-hearing, a young prosecutor with a briefcase of fresh subpoenas, Voss's name bold on the top. "Your Honor, new information, irregularities in the filings. This smells of fraud." Chaos simmered but didn't boil. Voss's face drained of color, arguments crumbling as the judge ordered a recess, her gavel a sharp crack that echoed like breaking chains. Ray bolted for the side door, enforcers trailing, but Jacob blocked their path with a polite wall of frame, the moment passing in murmurs rather than melee. Outside, as the drizzle picked up, Ethan exhaled into the mist, the riders gathering in a loose circle, the courthouse steps a stage for quiet victory. But Voss's parting glare promised reprisal, a whisper to Ethan as he passed. "Roads twist, biker, watch your backs." The words hung, a shadow on the sun's tentative warmth, the convoy mounting up with engines growling ascent. Back toward Mercy General, the miles unspooled under clearing skies, raindrops beading on fairings like unshed tears. Ethan radioed ahead. Clara's hearing cleared, treatment secured. The bakery dream inching toward reality with club-backed loans, no strings but loyalty. Lily's voice chirped over the line, pure as morning light. But Ethan's grip tightened on the bars, sensing the road's final bend. Voss wouldn't fade. His web had teeth, and one loose thread could snag them all. As the hospital came into view, a beacon against the horizon, the riders rode on, oaths unbroken, the spark of a girl's wave fueling the charge against gathering dark. The horizon blurred into a golden haze as the convoy thundered back toward Mercy General, the sun's descent painting the wet asphalt in strokes of amber and shadow. Rain-slicked roads gleamed like polished obsidian, reflecting the chrome flanks of the bikes that cut through the mist like arrows loosed from a bow. Ethan's throttle hummed steady under his grip, the vibration traveling up his arms. sinking with the pulse of resolve that had carried them this far. The scent of damp pine clung to the air, sharp and cleansing after the storm, mingling with the faint ozone tang of cooling engines. Marcus rode close, his prosthetic whirring faintly over the roar, while Jacob anchored the rear, his watchful eyes piercing the spray from passing puddles. The courthouse victory lingered like a fresh tattoo, Voss's web pierced, debts nullified, Clara's trailer secured, but Ethan felt the undercurrent, a subtle drag in the wind, as if the road itself whispered of unfinished reckonings. Sarah waited at the hospital entrance, her silhouette framed by the glass doors, bandana damp from an earlier drizzle. Lily bounded out beside her, sneakers splashing in shallow pools, her sundress fluttering like a flag of triumph. "You did it. Mama said the papers came through. The bakery's ours." The girl's voice cut through the idling engines, bright as the emerging stars, pulling smiles from weathered faces. Clara followed in a wheelchair pushed by a nurse, her cheeks flushed with color that hadn't been there days before. The blanket over her lap rumpled from hours of hopeful waiting. Ethan dismounted, boots splashing softly, and knelt to Lily's level, the leather of his knees creaking against the pavement. "Not just papers, kid. A promise kept." He glanced up at Clara, her eyes meeting his with a depth that spoke of battles shared, the fragile rivers of tubes now pathways to strength rather than chains. The group converged under the awning, voices weaving in low tones amid the patter of residual drops from the eaves. Marcus handed out water bottles from a saddlebag, the plastic crinkling cool in calloused palms, while Jacob shared jerky wrapped in wax paper, its smoky aroma chasing the sterile hospital scent. Sarah updated them swiftly. The DA's office had frozen Voss's assets pending investigation, subpoenas flying like ravens to his associates, Ray's name tangled in the net as a willing pawn. "He's skipped town," she said, folding her arms, the iron oath patch on her vest catching the fading light. "But Voss? He's cornered, phoning favors, but the judge's ruling stands. Clara's clear." Clara nodded from her chair, her hand finding Lily's, the simple touch a bridge across the chasm illness had carved. "I thought dreams like the bakery were just sketches. Now, it's real." As twilight deepened, the parking lot became a circle of firelight. A few riders kindling a small grill from club supplies, flames crackling to life with the pop of embers and the sizzle of burgers thawing in the heat. The air filled with the savory char of meat and onions, drawing nurses and visitors who paused, intrigued by the unexpected camaraderie. Ethan sat on a low curb, Lily perched beside him, her legs swinging as she recounted the day's waves to her new aunts and uncles in leather. Stories flowed like the nearby river after rain, tales of the club's founding oath, sworn under a blood moon after a brother's fall, a vow to mend what the world broke. Ethan's voice joined in, low and gravelly, recounting his desert promise, the scar on his jaw a silent testament, pulling nods from the circle. Redemption wasn't in grand gestures, he said, but in the quiet stand, the wave answered when no one else heard. Yet the road's twist came subtle, as they often did. A lone figure approached from the lot's edge, footsteps hesitant on the gravel, not Voss's enforcers, but a dishevelled woman in a rumpled coat, her face etched with the wear of long nights. She clutched a manila envelope, eyes darting to the bikes before settling on Ethan. "Mr. Hale, I'm Elena Voss, Harlan's sister." The name hung like smoke, the flames flickering shadows across her features. The riders tensed, hands pausing mid-bite, but Ethan rose slowly, gesturing her to the fire's warmth. "Speak." Her voice trembled, the envelope crinkling as she extended it. "He sent me. Not threats, proof. His own ledgers, the ones he hid. I couldn't let it bury more lives. Clara's not the first, won't be the last if he walks." Inside the packet lay the unravelling, forged documents. Bribe trails snaking through county coffers, Ray's signature on deals that preyed on the desperate, Elena's confession spilled in whispers, the brothers' descent into greed after their parents' ruin, her silent complicity now shattered by the club's unyielding light. "Take it to the DA. End it." Tears traced her cheeks, mixing with the night's chill, and Sarah stepped forward, offering a steady arm, the medic's touch turning witness to solace. Ethan accepted the envelope, its weight lighter than the burden it lifted, a final thread severed in the web. "You've chosen right. Ride with us if you need." She shook her head, vanishing into the dark, but her act sealed the circle, justice blooming not from force, but from one soul's turn toward honor. By midnight, the DA's line confirmed receipt, Voss's empire crumbling under the flood of evidence, arrests rippling outward like stones in a still pond. The grill's embers glowed low, the group dispersing to watches and rest, engines silent but spirits alight. Lily yawned against Clara's shoulder, wheeled back to her room where monitors hummed lullabies of recovery. Ethan lingered outside, the cool air carrying the distant call of owls, stars wheeling overhead like witnesses to oaths fulfilled. His brother's ghost felt closer, not in grief but in peace, the promise kept, a family's dream rising from cupcakes and waves. The bakery would open come spring, shelves stocked with Lily's treats, the iron oath's shadow a gentle guard. As dawn's first light kissed the horizon, the convoy prepared to scatter, bikes rumbling to life in farewell, a chorus of loyalty echoing into the miles. Ethan mounted last, glancing back at the hospital's warm glow, Clara and Lily framed in the window, hands waving like beacons. The road stretched open, winding toward new calls, but this chapter closed with the sweetness of redemption, a girl's persistent wave summoning angels, forging bonds that outlasted storms and shadows. In the world of roaring pipes and whispered vows, honor rode eternal, a legacy etched in dust and dreams. Thank you for riding with us on this journey of unbreakable promises and chosen family. If these stories of quiet courage and moral fire touch your heart, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more tales from the open road.